Confirming you can see my screen.
Good morning, fun seekers.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
How you guys doing? Hi, Anna.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
It is nice to see everybody's face, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's even nice to hear the kids in the background.
And we won't be hearing Claudia's dogs today because she's in the office.
Ah. What kind of dogs do you have, Claudia? They're Central Asian Shepherd dogs. So oh, wow. They're pretty massive. I like those dogs.
Pretty massive, pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
one of them
peanuts.
stood up and it was almost as tall as
Of course.
Oh, wow. My lab's pretty big, but she's just pretty quiet. She barks outside, but she's pretty quiet inside.
My dog doesn't bark outside. She barks inside.
Oh,
Rich,
Yep.
it is past 10:30, so whenever you're ready.
I am ready. Let's call the meeting to order. And good morning to everyone. My name is.
good morning.
Good morning. I'm President Richard Atwater, and welcome to our teleconferencing Zoom meeting. And those from the public, thank you for joining us. As usual, I want to provide an overview of the public comment process before we get started. If you wish to provide live public comment, please submit your requests through the link to the online request form noted on the agenda. Please make sure you submit the form by 10:45. We are also accepting written comments, and all written comments should be emailed to Ms. Claudia Rodriguez before the conclusion of the meeting. They will be included in the record of this meeting. And with that, I'll ask Claudia if she'd call the roll call of the board members.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Director Atwater.
Present.
Director Millibar.
Present.
Director Stamera.
Hi.
Director Palmer. Present. Director Martin.
Present.
Director Chen.
Here.
Director Anabdawi.
Present.
Alternate Director Chapman. Alternate Director Fast.
Here.
Alternate Director Keegan. Here. Alternate Director Tincher.
Here.
And alternate Director Lamoureux.
Here.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
That was very good.
Excellent. All right, we have a quorum.
Excellent. If you would all please put your hand over your heart and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I'll ask Claudia under agenda item 4, public comment. Do we have any requests for public comment?
Director Atwater, at this time, we have not received any public comment requests.
Okay, great. And of course, you'll let me know if during the agenda and the meeting today, if we do have any requests.
Of course.
Great. The first item on the agenda after that is we want to consider the approval of the minutes. Item 5 from the October 15th regular board meeting and the special October 26th meeting.
I move.
Second.
We have a motion and second from Sarah and Tony.
Josh?
President Atwater, we don't have the approval on the minutes agenda. They'll be on the regular meeting agenda later this month. The only discussion item we have for us this morning is just the introduction and orientation.
Okay, great. Yeah, you had that on the script, but
Apologies.
Yeah, no problem. We're practicing that one. Well, then I would turn it over to our Executive Director, Catherine Mellon, to do the discussion item.
Great. So welcome everyone to our first meeting together as a group. It's nice to have us all together in this forum to kick things off. I imagine it's a little bit strange to do a board orientation in a public meeting, but all part of our mantra as a group to be very transparent and engaging with the public. Hopefully you didn't have any trouble with the Ring Central platform to join the meeting or during the meeting, but if you do have any problems or questions, just feel free to raise your hand or interrupt, and Jennifer Malone is on the call and she can kind of help troubleshoot, so I don't want anyone to have any effect on participation today. Next slide, Claudia, please. All right, we have a fairly short agenda, but unfortunately, there may be a little bit of some dry material items. We'll do our best to make it entertaining. Purpose is to give you some important background information on the organization and walk you through some of our housekeeping steps that we need in the formulation of this new board. Largely myself, Josh Nelson, and Claudia Rodriguez will be walking us through the presentation, and we have a guest appearance from Cindy Messer with DWR and Sarah Palmer, who chairs our SEC committee. So next slide, please. So with that, I'd just like to start with some introductions. Start with the DCA staff members who are participating, and then we'll introduce Cindy and then each of the board members. I'm gonna, Claudia, if you could call through them when we get to that point, just ask you to introduce yourselves and the agency that you represent, the position that you hold within that agency, and then maybe a quick sentence or two on what your primary goals are for the DCA organization as your role as a board member. So I'll start with myself. I am the executive director of the DCA. I joined about 2 years ago, and my background is in engineering design and program management, including about an 8-year stint with the City of New York, where I ran the water wastewater capital program there. And I'm very excited about working with this new and expanded board, and I want to make sure that all of the state water contractors participating in this project feel well connected with the organization that you all help form. With that, Josh and Claudia, if you could introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Claudia. I'll go after you.
Again, good morning. I'm Claudia Rodriguez. I am the Chief of Staff here at the DCA and also the board clerk, and I look forward to working with all of you and moving onward with this program. On to Josh.
Thanks, Claudia. Good morning, everyone. Josh Nelson. I'm the DCA's General Counsel. I'm very excited to work with the new board and welcome.
And Cindy, if you could introduce yourself on behalf of Carla and say a few words on behalf of DWR, that'd be terrific.
Okay, can you all hear me okay?
It's breaking out a little bit on my end.
Could I suggest that
Okay.
we allow us to see each other for now?
Yeah, I have everyone have their video on?
No, you have to take the
Oh, the PowerPoint down. Yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that? Great, perfect.
There you go, that's better.
Good suggestion, Tony.
Okay, is this better? I'm going to see if I can go without the earbuds.
Great.
It's okay. All right, good deal. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Cindy Messer, and I am Chief Deputy Director for the Department of Water Resources. And I'm here today and very grateful to be here to say a few welcoming remarks to this new and expanded board. I also want to say congratulations on behalf of our Director Smith She wasn't able to be here with us this morning, but I was super happy to be able, as I said, to step in and say a few welcoming remarks. Milestone day, obviously, kind of a new beginning with this expanded board, and we really look forward to working with all of you on behalf of the department. So just a few things I wanted to run through really quickly. As you know, the DCA was formed at a time when the previous California water preparing for implementation. So actually, both on the design and the construction fronts. But this organization, the DCA, was able to quickly pivot both its focus and its efforts in that process and that work when the state decided to shift to a one-tunnel proposed Delta conveyance. So again, very grateful for the DCA and the ability at that time for this organization to shift its focus. So over the past 2 years, the DCA has made valuable contributions to help advance the proposed Delta Conveyance project. And I would definitely say from my vantage point, this is a well-oiled team, truly impressive personnel, and we've really enjoyed working with everyone for our part with the DCA. So notable amongst the contributions that the DCA has made over the last few years is the work that it has led in regard to stakeholder engagement. These are efforts that have been aimed at minimizing and avoiding potential local Delta impacts through engineering and design solutions and conversations. And during this time, the DCA and the DW worked together to create a collaborative team at all levels. And one of the things I wanted to really kind of hit home today on is that it's very important to us at DWR to continue to build on where we can this collaborative as we move together working through the proposed Delta Conveyance project. Both of our organizations have world-class personnel with broad and extensive expertise who are working together on one of the most important water infrastructure projects in modern times. So this task is going to be very intensive. We feel together we are to see the proposed project through. We've also worked together. I think we've spent a lot of really good quality time together building stakeholder relations. And I know for both of our organizations, you to be important to work together to fulfill our commitment around the proposed project and to ongoing public engagement. And obviously these meetings are one of those avenues in which we can provide that ongoing engagement. So thinking about the year ahead of us and the work to be done, there's a couple of milestone activities that I just wanted to mention this morning. The first is that together we are driving towards completing a draft environmental impact report and having that out about the middle of 2022, so just a little bit over a year from now. And in addition, throughout this year, what we'd like to be focused on is continuing to work on conducting impact analyses and working on ways to fine-tune design, project design, in order to further address any potential impacts and to improve ways to mitigate the impacts that we identify. So specifically for this board, one of the things that we wanted to recognize today with the new board members and the expansion of the board is that we see this enlarged representation from a variety of the public water agencies that are participating in the proposed project as a means to bring a broader and a deeper perspective to the proposed project and to the work that we have ahead of us over this year. So we are really excited to be able to work with all of you. And I think that enhanced perspective is going to be really important in the work we have ahead of us over this year. We also are excited because we see this board as one of the key avenues that we have to have communication and have channels of communication. So not only with you as board members, but a means to have a way to communicate more efficiently and effectively with your home agencies and those boards, as well as ways we can help in communications with your service area and your constituents in those areas. So again, excited to have this opportunity, and the enlarged board really does provide for us, I think, another means to be able to move information back and forth, answer questions, and help with communications in general. In addition, one of the things that DWR wanted to recognize is the work of your home agency boards, the time and the energy that they put in towards the end of last year in obtaining approvals for planning funds for the proposed Delta Conveyance project. We most definitely saw those approvals as a very positive sign that this project proposal is moving in a good direction. And again, we look forward to working closely with all of you, your home agencies, the DCA staff, and the executive director, and keeping this very positive momentum going. So lastly, I just want to say welcome aboard. And on behalf of Director Namath, myself, the DWR team, we are definitely here to be helpful in any way we can. I would encourage you, reach out to us and let us know if there's anything we can do, especially for the new board members as you're wrapping your heads around the DCA, where it's been, where it's going, and the project itself, and things like the collaborative process that we've built together. If there are ways and ideas to enhance that, we are definitely happy to hear those and talk through them with you. So with that, do I turn this back over to Claudia or to you, Catherine?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. That was terrific. President Atwater, if you want to make a comment real quick, that'd be great. And if you'd like Claudia to introduce each one of the board members to start their introductions, she'd be glad to pick up the.
Absolutely. Well, one, I want to thank Cindy, and you're right. Over the last 2 years, being a member of the DCA board, we really appreciate the whole leadership team at DWR and their collaboration and working with DCA on all the different activities. So we really do appreciate that. And I think we look forward to continuing working together with the expanded board, and really appreciate the partnership and the collaboration between DWR and DCA. So with that, I will ask if Claudia would go through the introductions of all the new and existing board members and the alternates.
Sure thing. So let's see, Martin Millibar.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Sure can.
Okay. Just as a little bit of background, I'm a civil engineer and agricultural engineer, and I managed one of the member units of the Kern County Water Agency, who I'm a director of, for about 25 years. So background is in water, and I look forward to interacting with everyone on this project. It's very interested in the successful accomplishment of this project, and we will, Royce and I will be working closely with all of our member units to keep them apprised of the progress of this committee and the project, and we're very excited to see it get through the planning and into the construction phase. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? And I'll turn it back to Claudia to.
Thank you, Mr. Millibar. Director Samara.
Yeah, hi. I'm a board member at the Santa Clara Valley Water District, and we're in Silicon Valley. Basically, our organization covers all of the county, Santa Clara County. We're the only district actually in the whole county, And we also handle flood control. So we're kind of a dual agency, and as some of you might know, we're a state we're a state contractor as well as a federal contractor. I served as the first chair of the board, the DCA board, the first couple of years, and my main objective on behalf of my board is to make sure that we get us a good project, that we get this monstrosity moving, and we make sure we build it right. And secondly, that we make sure that we are sensitive to the community there in the Delta, and that we work with them very closely to make sure that they have a say-so as much as possible in the project, and that they get their benefits just like we will. Thanks. Oh, by the way, I'm a retired lawyer. Thank you. But welcome aboard to the new members. We're looking forward to your participation. We've been waiting for you, so welcome aboard. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Director Palmer.
All right, I am a director of Zone 7 Water Agency, which covers Livermore, Pleasanton, Dublin, parts of Sunol, and we're water wholesale, and then we also sell to agriculture. So we've got some of the very nice wineries. We've got great wineries here, and then also we're in flood control as well. I'm also representing the Alameda County Water Agency. So we have the two agencies that are represented by me at this particular point. And then what I really have enjoyed, from this point chairing the SEC, it has taught me a lot. And also what I would like to do is to see the DCA proceed. It's such an important thing. And I am a former researcher as a biochemist, and then also a teacher. So I really think it's terribly important for us to go through with public education for what this project actually is and why it's important. And so all of us at this point have to be educators, and that's what I see as part of my role as well. And I'm so glad that we have a 7-person board now. Zone 7 has a 7-person board, and it's nice to have many more minds coming in and representing more areas. So welcome to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Director Gary Martin.
Let me unmute myself. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And I'm very honored to be here. I'm a civil engineer by trade, civil and structural engineer by trade. Although I have retired from active practice after 44 years of very interesting and challenging work. I am an elected member of the Santa Clara Valley Water Agency Board of Directors, a newly formed agency as of January 1st, 2018, that combined all of our retailers here in Santa Clarita. You may remember our predecessor agency, the Castaic Lake Water Agency, of which I was an elected member of that board before becoming a member of the SCV Water Board. I was recently reelected in November for another 4-year term, and I'm currently serving as the board president. My goal, well, first of all, I'm very honored to be here and look forward to working with you all. And my goal will be to represent the interests of my agency and the other class 3, 5, and 7 members, and to help move this vitally important project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Director Robert Chang.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be here this morning, and nice to see some familiar faces. And I look forward to meeting, hopefully in person, fairly soon, to my other fellow board members. So I'm one of the 4 directors that represent Class 8. So I think we're in a little bit unique position in the fact that between the 4 of us, 2 directors and 2 alternates, we represent a total of 9 different agencies in Southern California. And I think all total, I think our table A allotment is probably, over 20. I know it's easily over 20%, whether it's, truly, I think it's, definitely over 20%. So, definitely want to say that, this isn't, Robert Chang's show or Admin Anatabi show. It's, we're representing everybody. A little bit, by the way, background, I have a PhD in civil engineering. Been in the water business for 30-something years, not as much as some others, but hopefully I'll get there, someday. I represent the Coachella Valley Water District, and I am the Assistant General Manager. I've been here for 8 years, and we have the distinction of being the southernmost state water contractor in the Coachella Valley. I'm very excited to be part of this process, and besides just kind of representing my agency, and I think we all have fairly hefty investments to make on this very, very important project. I just want to reemphasize that a big part of, I think, my responsibilities here, as I see it, is to actually take input from the Class 8 parties that I represent and bring it forward in front of the board, as well as communicate back to our member agencies. So again, thank you for the warm introductions, and really looking forward to working with all of you on this very important project. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Adnan Anaptawi.
Thank you very much. I like how you pronounce the last name. I might have to adopt that myself. My comments are going to be pretty similar to Director Robert Chang's. I am the other seat of the Class 8 representatives. In terms of, I'm currently employed by Mojave Water Agency as the Imported Water and Engineering Manager. I'm smiling at Director Gary Martin because I have a lot of thanks to give him for all the good work he's done at the agency. But yeah, in terms of my background, civil engineer, I have a master's and bachelor's in civil engineering with a focus on water resources, also hydraulics. In terms of my interest for participation on this board of the DCA, I think this is the Delta Conveyance is a very important project for the state. I think the Delta Conveyance Design Construction Authority's job and role so far has been tremendous in connecting all the different various groups, including the interested contractors in the project, and that function is very critical to moving such an important project forward. And in terms of what I'm hoping to bring to the table here is to really be a conduit of information. As a representative of the Class 8 contractors, I feel that the most important thing I can do is make sure that information exchange is clear and present continuously. And so I'm honored to serve on this board and look forward to discussions in the future with my fellow board members. So thank you.
Thank you, Adnan. And so moving on to our alternate directors who are present today, we have alternate director Royce Fast.
Yes, I'm Royce. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Okay.
I'm Royce Fast. I am currently president of the Kern County Water Agency. I am a farmer, 4th generation farmer west of Bakersfield. Probably one of the few in here that writes a great big check out of his personal account to pay for water out of the State Water Project. My interest is to see that we have a effective project that is affordable and as reasonably priced as we can possibly make it. And to see this completed, which we desperately need in this state, is some more water infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you. Alternate Director Barbara Keegan. You're muted, Barbara.
About that.
Yep.
Okay. I think Director Estremera went over at pretty great depth what we do at Santa Clara Valley Water District. So I'll just kind of talk a little bit about my past experience and also my role as being vice chair of the Stakeholder Engagement Committee. I will say I'm joining a large crowd here by saying I'm a civil engineer, third generation civil engineer, and I have a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. My master's degree focus was in transportation, not water resources, and construction management, which actually is a little bit of use, though I never was involved with such a big project as we're looking at right now. I really want to reinforce the importance of the Stakeholder Engagement Committee. I think first it creates an opportunity to have a dialogue with people, many of whom have had very open concerns about the project, but this allows them a chance to get educated about the project and also to educate us, to provide information in terms of what local conditions are and if the project moves forward, what can be done to minimize the impacts to the community. So successful projects, I think, begin and end with good communication with everyone and having everyone feel like they're a partner in what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Alternate Director Robert Tincher.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, go by Bob, but thank you. I am one of the Class 8 alternates. For those that are not familiar with that term, Class 8 is the East Branch of the State Water Project. I'm with the San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District. We are very supportive of this project, going so far as to front some of the money to keep the planning, the early planning and permitting going for this project. I am a civil engineer with a master's degree as well, the chief resources officer and one of the deputy general managers, and I've been with the district for almost 29 years. So I'm really excited about this project. It's really important for Southern California and all of California, and I'm just pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alternate Director Dennis Lamoureux.
Good morning. I represent Palmdale Water District as an alternate on the East Branch, or Class 8 contractors. I've served as a general manager with the Water District, been here off and on since '89. We have a big interest in the success of this project and are very interested in working with everybody to get it done right. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That concludes our introductions, Catherine and Director Atwater.
Excellent. Thank you. It's a pretty well-educated, nerdy group of engineers we got here, except for you, Tony. It looks like you're the lone lawyer.
Biochemist.
Oh, used to it.
Right. Well, PhD biochemist. Scientists, engineers. That's great. Thank you all for the introductions. So we go back to the presentation. The next section, Josh, if you could go through the JPA and JEPA with the group, that'd be terrific.
Thanks, Catherine. So we wanted to do as part of the orientation is just kind of talk through, what we call the JPA and then also the JEPA, really sort of the foundational documents for us as the DTA. And before we get started on that, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about and just kind of run through sort of the acronyms that we run, that we're going to be dealing with as we work together. I think for those, I know this group's very familiar with the project, but just in case you're not, I think sometimes it can kind of end up being alphabet soup, being exposed to all the acronyms we're using. And so those include the DCA or the DCA, which is of course our agency, the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority. And when we talk about DCP, we mean the Potential Delta Conveyance Project that we're currently assisting DWR, or the Department of Water Resources, with considering. And then there is our Joint Powers Agreement, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's the document that was signed by all of our member agencies, which created the DCA. Then there is the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement, which is the contract between the DCA and DWR that outlines which services we're currently providing DWR in support of their consideration of potential DCP. And then there are the PWAs, or all of the public water agencies, or all of our member agencies that work together to form the DCA. And those member agencies are members of the SWC, or the State Water Contractors, Inc., which is a nonprofit which helps represent PWA-related issues. And then, all of this relates to the State Water Project, or the SWP, which is, of course, the water conveyance operated by DWR to provide water to all the PWAs. So just to kind of throw all that, the alphabet soup together into a sentence, the DC-DCA is a JPA formed by participating PWAs that receive water from the SWP, who are SWC members providing services to DWR under the terms of the JEPA for consideration of a potential DCP. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the JPA, or the Joint Powers Agreement, is, formed the DCA. And as part of this new and expanded board, there was an approved of a revised and a sort of amended and restated JPA. And approval of that JPA was part of the recent action taken by all the member agencies over the previous months related to participation in the planning work for the Delta Conveyance project. And those votes included, level of participation in that planning work for DCP, approval of a funding agreement with DWR for that work, and then importantly for us as DCA, approval of the revised JPA. To reiterate it, the DCA is governed by and exists solely as a result of the JPA. So what we do, how we do it, is in that document. It is our constitution. It is, why and how we exist. Next slide, please. So one of the important changes in the new JPA is the board of directors. Previously, the DCA had a 4-member board, and those board seats were assigned 2 to Metropolitan Water District, 1 to Valley Water, and 1 to the remaining state water contractors, and was filled by Director Palmer on behalf of Zone 7. The JPA actually provided a seat for Kern County Water Agency, but as had joined the DCA at that point, that seat was vacant. Next slide. With our new and expanded board, we now have a 7-member board, which assigns seats based on representation for different contractors. So Metropolitan now has 1 seat, and that's held by Director Atwater. Kern County Water Agency has a seat for Director Millibar. Valley Water for Director Estremera. Class 2 is Zone 7 in Alameda County, and that seat, of course, is currently held by Director Palmer. Then Class 3 and 7, which is Dudley Ridge and Santa Clarita Valley, that's held by Director Martin. And then Class 8, which are the 9 contractors on the list there. Those seats, of course, are currently held by Directors Chang and Antitwabi. Next slide, please. Another important change in the JPA is how the board will approve items and vote on issues. So under the new JPA, all decisions by this board will be made by majority vote. This is a slight change for prior board members, where there were some decisions under the old JPA that were subject to a supermajority vote of the board. That being said, there will be some decisions that come before the board that will be subject to a new process in the new JPA, which is called reconsideration. Those items are specifically approval and modification of the annual DCA budget, construction contracts worth $10 million or more, services contracts of $1 million or more measured over the life of the agreement, and then any other indebtedness or leases. If there is a request for reconsideration, that will need to be made by any board member, and that request needs to be made at the initial board meeting that approves the item subject to reconsideration. And then that will have that item be placed on a future DCA board meeting agenda. That meeting will need to be held between 14 and 30 days from date of the approval of the initial item. And then when that item goes before the board for reconsideration, voting will not happen on a majority basis. Rather, it will be done under weighted vote based on each board, each director's share of what is called in the JPA contracted proportionate share, or is essentially the share of the Delta Conveyance project planning work that each agency is funding. So it'll be relatively simple for those directors that are representing a single agency. That will, your vote will simply be the share that your agency is participating in the project. For those of you who represent more than one agency, it will be the aggregate of the agencies that you're representing, with the exception of the Class 8 directors. In those cases, because those agencies have 2 seats, your vote will be worth all of the Class 8 contracted share divided by 2, and then of course split equally between those two shares. And then when the vote comes to reconsideration for an item to be reconsidered or essentially undone or taken back, it will require that there are votes to reconsider by 70% of the contracted proportionate share. Next slide. Last item on the JPA is the officers. So consistent with the prior JPA, officers will serve 2-year terms. However, the prior JPA assigned some officer positions under a rotation basis among the different agencies. The amended JPA removes that and now has all officers serving at the pleasure of the board. Currently, we are in the middle of a 2-year term for some officers, and that term began July 1st of last year and will continue through June 30th, 2022. And that's President Atwater, Vice President Palmer. There is a vacancy currently in the secretary position, which will be filled by this board at your first regular meeting on the 18th. And then our treasurer is Katana with Metropolitan. Next slide, please. All right, so that's the JPA. Now the JEPA, or the Joint Exercise of Power Agreement. And a reminder, that's the contract between DWR and DCA, which specifies the services that we provide DWR. This contract was initially signed between the parties related to water fix, and the initial JEPA, of course, provided that DCA would design and construct that project. With the pivot to Delta Conveyance, we amended the JEPA, and that first amendment was approved in June of 2019. And that generally outlines the services that we're providing to during what's called the planning phase in the document, and Catherine will talk about that a little bit later this morning. That JEPA has been amended a couple of times, currently up through 4 amendments, and those amendments deal with administrative matters between the parties on things like budgeting and others, as well as DCA's repayment of the DWR initial contribution, which helped fund some initial DCA activities, which is currently at 43.2 million. Next slide. So that was all I was hoping to cover this morning. I'll turn it back over to you, Catherine. Thank you.
Well, I think if any of the...
Or if there's any questions, excuse me. Yeah.
Any questions from the board or alternates?
All right.
Catherine, I guess go ahead.
Yeah, let's go. All right, so I just want to spend a little bit of time going through the DCA and the work we've done to date and into the future. I'll, at the end, just have a Q&A session, and hopefully if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Based on the JEPA, there are 3 core areas of responsibility that we have during this planning period. The first is the engineering services, which is largely centered around developing the concept engineering documentation for the alternatives that are identified as part of the CEQA process, and to execute the field work program, which includes the geotech boring, surveying, entry, permits, and the like. Also, a big component, and has been mentioned by several of our board members, is the stakeholder engagement process that informs our design work. And finally, the administrative functions that are needed to help support an organization. Next slide. I just want to give you a sense of the top vendors that are working within the DCA organization. The DCA itself does not have direct employees. The people who work within the structure of the authority are from a number of firms that competitively bid for work on the program. What I included in this table, these are really the top 7 contracts that we hold, and the names of the vendors and their function. And to give you an idea of the size of these contracts, I've included last year's and this fiscal year's commitment values for each of these vendors. Obviously, the biggest part of what we do is around the engineering work, and that contract work is done by Jacobs, and they have 2 primary subs, WSP and GEI, that are supporting them. There's also a number of other ones there that have specialty pieces. And then Parsons, that provides a lot of the program management support as well as the chief engineer position. And then Fugro is also another big contractor for the DCA, and they do all of the geotech field work. Next slide. So this is the organizational structure of the DCA. It's fairly standard for a program of this nature. There are 3 positions within the structure that report directly to the board, and those include myself as the executive director, Katana, who's our treasurer, and she's with MWD, and Josh Nelson, who's the general counsel for the DCA. And then Claudia, who serves as chief of staff, she supports not just myself, but really the entire organization and fills gaps wherever they arise. But she's also the person you probably will most hear from in terms of administrative and coordinating the work that you all do, and coordinating the board meetings, et cetera. And any material you might need, you just flip her a note and she'd be glad to get it to you. In our structure, we also have a chief engineer, that's Steve Manassian, who provides the technical oversight and direction to the team. And I'll talk a little bit more about the engineering team on the next slide. And then we're all grouped by our key functional areas. Each functional area has a leader, and they have a very defined set of responsibilities that they provide for the organization. This is a very cohesive team, and we work really well together, despite coming from a variety of different organizations and companies. At DCA, everyone wears their DCA hat. And there's great communication between the teams and also across the functional areas. Each of the teams host weekly meetings. The senior leadership of the organization meets bi-weekly to make sure we're all well coordinated and the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And then we bring the whole team together in a monthly meeting so that everyone on the team understands the work that we're doing and some of the upcoming milestones that are occurring. And with the COVID pandemic, we just really haven't missed a beat working from home. We stay very well connected, largely with this Ring Central technology. And one last thing I'd like to say about our leadership team is that we encourage all of you as board members to feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling any one of us to ask a question or to get some more information that you may need. We all consider ourselves working for you as the board, and we also like to engage with all of you. I know Sarah works really closely with the comms team in her role chairing the SEC. Former board member Steve Blois participated in some interesting technical meetings that we had. So Josh, as our legal counsel, is always available to answer any legal questions you have. Phil Ryan, who leads our engineering, he loves explaining technical aspects of the program. So again, feel free to engage directly with any of us on the team, and Claudia will be distributing a contact list of the team members so that you have that at your for your use. Next slide. So I'm going to move on to the engineering team. It's obviously the core of what we do as an organization. And with any team, it's really about the people. They're the most important component of that, of that success. And I've worked with a lot of different engineering teams in the past 30 years of my career, and I have to say none top the qualifications of this team. On this chart, you may not recognize the names, but they're some of the top technical experts that exist in their field anywhere in this country. And I'd like to just tip my hat to Phil Ryan. He's the heart and soul of this team, and this organization could not be better served. He keeps his fingers in every aspect of the technical work, and he's done a phenomenal job of keeping the team really focused on quality and delivery. We started our engineering work really about only 18 months ago, and we've been able to produce 2 comprehensive concept designs. We've built on previous work, but there's been a lot of new thinking and original work in this current design, and we would not be here without the work that he's done. And also Steve Manassian, who's our chief engineer. He's got close to 40 years of tunneling experience, including 20 years as a builder. So he brings that important technical oversight as well as really valuable insight into the constructability of everything that we do. And finally, I want to do a shout out for Gwen Buchholz, who has probably done more planning and permitting work in the state of California than anybody. And she's a really key link, liaisoning between the planning work that Carrie Buckman at DWR and her team is doing and the engineering work that we're doing. She makes sure that we're delivering the information in a timely way, so as Carrie's team needs it, and also that the information that we're delivering is in a format that her team can, who's made up mostly of scientists, can efficiently assess, do their alternatives analysis. So, and a really, really top-notch, excellent team across the board. Next slide. This is our program controls group. Includes all the traditional controls functions. It's responsible for developing all the policies and procedures and the accompanying systems that we use to ensure that we're accurately tracking data and being really efficient as an organization. Ruth DeZenis leads this team. She's a controls expert, and she's led 2 major program system implementations in the past. Using eBuilder, which is the platform that we use. So she's been invaluable in that role. She's also an expert at business requirements and policy and procedure. As noted in the slide, most of the key members of this team are part-time right now, based on the workload. And obviously this group will continue to grow and expand as we grow as an organization. Next slide. So as I mentioned, eBuilder is a key part of our program. It's our program management platform, and the controls team has been working really closely with the developers, identifying the processes that go into the system and supporting the configuration and doing a lot of training. As with implementation of any new system, there's been some pain along the way, but Ruth and the team has done a really good job of getting feedback and improving the system to the point where I think we've got all the kinks worked out, and it's starting to work really well for us. Next slide. And just finally, we do a monthly report. We post it on our website every month. It's included in your board package, and it's a standing agenda item. And we include a narrative of all the work that we've completed in the past month, and include summary tables of our financial performance, including cash flow projections and schedule status. And I welcome any comments that you may have on this report, and glad to modify the content in the upcoming months once we start distributing this at your first meeting in February. Next slide. So I want to give you a brief review really of our engineering scope, and I'll get into our budget as well in this fiscal year and looking forward. This slide highlights the different alternatives of project configurations that we've been asked by DWR to study. And each one of the alternatives that we receive result in a preparation of a project engineering report. So that's the core of what Phil Ryan and his team work on. So to date, we've got 3 alignments that we've studied. We call them the Central, the East, and the Bethany alignments. Each extends from a common set of intakes along the Sacramento River near the town of Hood, and they terminate in the South Delta, where they connect with the existing state project facilities. The East and Central alignments include a large forebay in the southern area and pumping plant, and they connect to the Delta Conveyance system to the state project water system just upstream of the existing Banks pumping plant. Now, the Bethany alternative includes a lot of the same facilities along the east alignment, all the way down to the Lower Roberts shaft site, where the tunnel alignment diverges and heads just along the east side of the Clifton Court forebay and into a new pumping plant that pumps the flows directly up to Bethany Reservoir. And it bypasses the existing Banks pumping plant. So because there's only a single pumping system diverting water from the tunnel up to Bethany, there's no need for that southern forebay that's included in the Central East alignments. That's the major difference between the Bethany alignment and the East and Central. And the way that we've organized the alternatives for the engineering reports is the East and Central alternative are combined into a single report, and it's treated as just 2 different alignments, but largely the same component pieces. And then the Bethany alternative is in a separate report because it's got some significant differences in its configuration compared to East and Central. And we've also been asked to look at 3 different capacities of the system: 3,000, 4,500, 6,000, which was the preferred project capacity in the NOP, and 7,500 CFS. Next slide. All right, so this slide shows the key milestones in the Delta Conveyance program during this planning period. It starts with the withdrawal of the water fix project back in May of 2019, which was, about a month after I arrived. And that's what triggered the transition of the DCA's role and our scope of work. The NOP, Notice of Preparation for the new CEQA process, was issued in January of last year, and that kicked off our concept engineering work for the DCA. And then Carrie Buckman and the planning team expect to have a draft EIR EIS out for public review in the spring of next year, and a final document for certification in the summer of 2023. There are also 2 key permits that will be needed as well. The first, the change in point of diversion, or CPOD, and then the Delta Plan Consistency Permit that's issued by Delta Stewardship Council. And those are currently both planned for mid-2024. So that gives you a flavor of the key planning milestones. And then below that in this chart are the key activities that the DCA has been working on in the last 2 years, and also looking forward. We've spent the last 2 years getting all of our programs set up, our organizational structure, our systems, procedures, things like that. Prior to issue of NOP, there was the team took a deep dive into all of the engineering information that had been done in the past, and looked at all of the testimony and the previous hearings, just try to be very, very well versed with all of the technical work that had been done. When the NOP was released, the team started working on the Central and East alternative. That was the only alternative that had been identified at that time. And then in summer of last year, the Bethany alternative was identified and given to the DCA to begin developing concept engineering documentation for that alternative. In the summer of last year, we started our geotechnical program. That's about a 3.5 year program to better understand the underground conditions of the Delta. Obviously, that's where a lot of the risk on any kind of tunnel program like this is involved. And while there was a significant amount of available data along the central corridor from previous work, there was very little along the new eastern alignment that was included in this program. Stakeholder engagement meetings began in late 2019 and they continue to this date. And we plan to continue those in one fashion or another all the way for the next couple of years. And as we turn in our concept engineering documentation at DWR, they will be asking questions on the work, requesting additional information, asking us to change some of the design based on impacts that they've identified. So we'll be working on that over the next couple of years, and then supporting DWR in their hearings and permit preparation for those longer term permits that are out there with CPOD and Delta Plan consistency. So this kind of gives you a schedule of where we've been and the key areas of where we'll be going in the next couple of years. Next slide. So this table here goes through what our annual budget is for this year and what it's anticipated to be in the next coming years. I won't read all of the tasks that will be main tasks that will be included in those years. We went through it in the previous one, but essentially the budgets are going to keep the core team together and ensuring that we're available and we can respond quickly to whatever questions or changes that come from Carrie's team, and to continue that baseline geotech work. In the next couple of years, we also want to spend some time doing some value engineering. We echo the point that was made by one of the new board members that this project does need to be affordable, and we're going to be looking for smarter, better ways to achieve the goals and objectives and try to save some money there. Getting geotech information will be a really big part of some of that value engineering work. There's a lot of risk money involved in having a lack of understanding in some of the underground conditions there. And also the stakeholder engagement, as I said, will continue throughout the future years. Next slide. One of the important things that you all will do as a board is to approve our annual budget. So I just want to use this slide to give you an introduction to that process, which begins in April of the fiscal year. And we start with a proposed work breakdown structure that identifies all of the work activities that we plan to cover. In May, we'll present a draft budget for your review and include PowerPoint presentation, taking deep dive into the key elements of the budget. And then in June, we'll seek final approval for the board for our budget moving forward. We also will need to get approval from DWR as well. That's a requirement in the JPA as well. Next slide. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that any of the board members may have on the scope or of work of the DCA or any of the organization.
This is Millibar. Are there any documents that us new board members should be reviewing to kind of catch up on our knowledge?
Yeah, that's a good point. We will be putting together a package of information that will include documents largely from the SEC meetings. Those are all public documents that are around our engineering work. And we'll both also be scheduling some one-on-one sessions with each of you to do some overviews of the work that's been done in the past and get you familiar with the alternatives and the key engineering elements of it. That's something that Phil and his team will start working on at the end of this month.
Also, will there be any opportunities, I'm sure there will down the road, where we would be able to have a on-site view of what's going on as it's needed?
Sure, I assume you mean along the alignment?
Yeah, just as the project progresses.
Sure. Just for informational purposes, if you go on our website, we have We have a virtual tour of the alignment of the project, including all of the project sites, and there's site plans and renders of the facilities included in that. And we did that right when COVID happened because we weren't able to get SEC members and members of the public out for tours, but that's a good place to start with. And certainly after the COVID restrictions are lifted, we would be glad to get you out with and any of the other members out on a tour of the facilities and include some of the engineering members on that team to answer any detailed questions you may have. But yeah, team would love to engage with you on the technical information that's been developed to date.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Catherine, this is Robert Chain. Could I maybe ask you a quick question about the budget, just for clarification purposes?
Sure.
So I think, back some slides ago, I think you showed maybe, 35 million for, engineering efforts. And I think it's been largely characterized that this phase of the planning exercise really is kind of a, efforts that leads us towards successful permitting, resolution to, environmental permitting. So I think it's just a clarification for me. So the engineering efforts that you're speaking of, which is kind of looking at different alignments and so on, and kind of narrowing it down to the proposed project, really geared towards the successful resolution of the permitting.
Absolutely. Yeah, our efforts are focused on what Carrie's team needs around the engineering, and we're focused on making sure that all the facilities that are needed and the construction work that's needed to build these facilities have all been defined well enough to minimize any changes that might be needed in the future as well. So yeah, all of our work is very much focused on meeting Carrie's needs.
Right.
Haven't gone beyond that on the engineering side.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and talk about the stakeholder engagement.
Okay, do you want me to start?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, great. All right. Basically, I wanted to just start out to say that in working with the SEC group and with the engineers, it's almost like I've gotten another degree in something here with the working with the teams and setting up a project. So it has been amazing to see how this group functions and how the team for the DCA and for the project and for the stakeholder engagement is. So let me start out talking about the stakeholder engagement committee. And Claudia, could you give me the next slide? Okay, thank you. Now here's our guiding principles, and basically you can read this, but the real thing that we wanted to build on is give information to the public, obviously in a timely fashion as things changed as we went through. Building the transparency and the trust was crucially important, and the team that has been working with this has been extraordinary in terms of building the trust of the community. Now, I'll just say right here, while we're working with mutual understanding and encouraging the dialogue, the people who are on the committee, they are not people who are, gung-ho in charge of, they really want this to go through. These are people who are living in the Delta, and they, I would say for the majority, they do not want to see this project go through. So that's really important to understand. But the one thing which I just have to acknowledge their amazing ability to work with this and still try to understand what's going on and give input. So we're looking at the public participation of the engineering process. Our engineers from the DCA have provided so much information. And again, this mutual understanding and this transparency and the follow through. And our team folks, especially like Valerie Martinez and Nazli Pardisi have gone out and talked to people and met with them. Could we have the next slide? The next slide, please. Thank you. Now, it is a 20-member board, And the people who are on this board had applications come in, and these were to represent a really broad range of Delta issues. And the kinds of folks that we have on there, we've got people who are representing recreation and boating, agriculture, environmental justice, and also historical preservation, and also the Delta culture, because it does have its own culture in the various different communities. And the tribal government is also represented. We also have ex officio members who are representing transportation and emergency services. And what the members do is they get information to people who are part of their constituency. So we have people who represent some of the, oh, could you go back? Thank you. I just want to make sure I stay on this one. They represent their constituency, and what they do is they go out and provide information. Now, it has been difficult with COVID, and initially many of the members did not want to continue some of our meetings because of COVID, but they have managed to come forward and work really hard with their people. And some of the issues have been difficult in terms of parts of the Delta don't have proper connection for their internet. And so they have really done their best to go out there and still be in contact with their constituents. Initially, we met twice a month to get everybody going because there was so much engineering to understand. And this followed by monthly, and now each session, I must admit, I think one of the sessions actually lasted 4 hours, but like 2.5 to 3 hours. And then the members of the DCA themselves can come and report out to the board. And Nazli Parvizi always gives a summary of what's been going on. The folks do have compensation for their time commitment, and this is important because they really are committing a lot of time and effort for a project that they really don't like, but that they're really trying to make sure they can wrap their heads around and get all that information out to their own constituents. So this is really very important. Our meetings are, except for now in COVID times when we're meeting virtually, the meetings are always done in the Delta so that the folks in the Delta and who live there can get to the meetings when possible. Next slide. Now, I wanted to point out the team. I think throughout this, and this is something that I think is thanks to Catherine, because I think she has set up this culture of teamwork. And the folks who are working with this stakeholders engagement team are really important. Barbara and Nazli Parvizi has been extraordinary because she has reached out personally to so many people and met with them and listened to their issues and fed back to the board on this. Valerie has done extraordinary jobs in doing the meeting facilitation. Jasmine is always helping to keep things running. And then, you know, Hannah and Jennifer, of course. So I really want to make sure we recognize these folks because they have really, truly worked as a team with a potentially very difficult issue, but kept it transparent and kept it open. Could we have the next slide? Okay, so overall, our meeting agendas, we do the standard things. We update our logs. We have roundtable discussions. Everybody sits around on the same level in a kind of a U shape or a round table so that everybody can contribute. The technical presentations have been amazing. The engineers have come into that, and the DWR folks, mainly Carrie Buckman, comes in and gives updates from that. As well as follow-ups with support calls and then as requested support. In terms of materials, when libraries were open and that materials were given to folks so that they could go into the libraries, people are given electronic media. I wanted to show you this. Basically, every member and their libraries and that have this thing, which gets periodically updated. It's huge, but it's wonderful because it gives them maps, it gives things that people can actually study, it gives some of the engineering information, and all this has really been an education for all of us, and just making sure that the public and that the SEC members have their hands on the information that's relevant and what all the alternatives are and what goes through with those particular alternatives. We have had, when it was possible, live tours to visit relevant sites, tours for fish exclusion devices, tours for various different sites like the sandhill cranes and things like that. And then, of course, as was mentioned previously, the virtual tours, which I'm hoping you'll all take advantage of and take a look at that. So could I please have the next slide? Okay, now our communications, they're really well documented, and believe me, this group is a very active group, and they make sure if there's something that they feel we're not letting them know, we know about it. And so we have very detailed meeting minutes, and the summaries are issued right after each meeting. These are not minutes, but they do give a summary so people can go over in their head and report out to their people. It is live streamed and it is archived. We have all the questions that come in, whether they come in live or whether they come in by email or by letter, and they get logged into our database and they get responded to. And then, of course, the DCA board itself, we get the information, and then the DCA gets report outs. And the SEC members, they can, if they wish, appoint a couple of people to come in and report as well to the DCA. Next slide, please. Okay, so there, yeah, the next one. All right, this is just to sum up here. This work to date, we have done the introduction to the Delta Conveyance system. It's been a huge public outreach. We have, public participation all the time. We have a detailed review of key project elements for all of the alternatives, including some that are not shown here, which were not the main alternatives. The reasons for particular choosing of different intakes. As you can see, we had 5 different potential intake sites to start with, and now we're down to 2. Siting alternatives and also final site footprints. Of course, DWR has not yet chosen a particular route, so we've just provided all the information for them. What's been really interesting about the SEC too is the members, while they do not like the project per se, they have brought up particular issues like citing of intakes or shafts because of it could be a problem with either logistics or a problem with sensitive environmental sites. And the group here, the team with the Delta Conveyance, has been able to show movement and show changing the footprints for different things in response to some of the input that we've gotten from these people. So we're going through construction and final site footprints, the tunnel material management, which has been a very big issue with the SEC members, and design, I guess, as I mentioned, the design changes, and then the committee itself sometimes has special topics that they want to address, and the DCA staff and the SEC team has been very, very responsive on this. So overall, this has been just an amazing group, and it is not part of the CEQA for DWR, but it does inform a lot of the things which perhaps they can use. I don't know, but working on this, hopefully we can go forward, and the SEC has provided me with a whole bunch of information, and all of us with a lot of information in terms of people who are not just stakeholders in terms of money, but stakeholders who really have their own physical skin in the game. And so it's so important to consider what their viewpoints are. That's it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Great presentation. Any questions from the members of the board? Obviously, we have a regularly scheduled meeting on February 18th, and we will be discussing the SEC, and I'll be on the agenda then too. So if you have,
I wanted to just mention one other thing. We did have a meeting scheduled for last week. However, we decided to postpone it at that point because there were weather issues and people had trees down and potential flooding and no connection. And then today there was supposed to also be a meeting, but it was canceled. So we just canceled the meeting altogether. And that's because a county deputy from Sacramento County, Adam Gibson, was killed in a January 18th shootout. And many of the people in the Delta are intimately involved with that. They knew him, they knew his family, and so they are participating in the funeral today. So that's why we do not have a DCA SEC meeting today.
Great, thanks for, okay. Any questions? Seeing none, we can wrap up agenda item 5 and move on. Any requests? Agenda item 6 is future agenda items. Does anybody have something they would like to have on the agenda on February 18th?
President Atwater, I apologize. We still have one more, at least I think one more presentation, or maybe 2 more, just on some of the logistics of how.
Oh, the logistics? Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't know that was part of the discussion. Good.
Yeah, so Claudia, if you could pull up the next slide there. I think Claudia and Josh and Jennifer Malone will walk us through this. We can do this real quickly. This is one of the more tedious sections of this presentation.
So just to wrap this up quickly, so again, I'm Claudia Rodriguez. I'm the board clerk. If you have any questions or need anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Most of you have my contact information. If you don't, I will get it to you. Board meetings are set for the 3rd Thursday of every month at 2 p.m. unless we have a closed session. But we will know in advance if we do, so you will be notified. We asked if you could please log on 15 minutes prior to start of any meeting that we schedule. This is to make sure that your audio and your visual systems are working properly, so we don't have any technical issues throughout the meeting. And then board meetings are recorded and video is posted to our dcdca.org website. Calendar notices are also distributed along with any meeting materials, typically 72 hours ahead of the meeting to be in compliance with the Brown Act. Board meeting packets as well are posted to our website for reference. We have a standing agenda for our board meetings. So the first item here, the progress update, that pretty much is a monthly board report that we put together that covers activities from the engineering field work and our other teams on the DCA program, as well as budgetary and schedule information. The SEC update, as mentioned previously, is an update from Nazli Parvizi, our communications manager, and we also invite members from the Stakeholder Engagement Committee to provide a report out. The DCA Spotlight provides insight on the great work performed by the DCA team and the organization, as well as the collective wealth of experience, expertise, and excellence from the team. The special topics cover any items like independent technical reviews and budgetary updates. The DWR planning update, that is an environmental report out from Carrie Buckman, who is the environmental manager from DWR. Our treasurer's report and our general counsel's report. From me, you will receive a packet of information regarding the oath of office, the conflict of interest code, how to complete your Form 700. Most of you have probably already received an email from the FPPC regarding what you will need to do to complete the form. We've also requested that you please provide a brief bio along with your best headshot so that we can put that information on our website, and then as well as the best contact information for you. I believe I have everyone's contact information, but if there's alternate ways that you'd like for me to get a hold of you, please let me know. And I will turn it over to Jennifer Malone.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Claudia. I'm Jennifer Malone, and I oversee all of the administrative and IT and facility functions for DCA. Just a quick overview of a few things. DCA email address will be provided for all of the new board members, as well as alternates. In order to access that, you can go to outlook.com. I do recommend adding that to your primary application, whether it's Outlook or Gmail. I'll be contacting everybody and making sure that we've got you technically set up so that you can receive all of the information that you need. Next slide. So everybody who connected to this meeting, you are connecting via RingCentral. That is our phone, instant messaging, and video conferencing solution that we use for DCA. You will be given a DCA phone number, which will be kind of nice to be able to manage your communications regarding anything DCA. You will also be able to communicate with DCA staff via the desktop application. And we're going to send all of the information to your primary email address. Again, this is the video conferencing that we're utilizing. It's identical to Zoom. So for all of your Zoom meetings that you've been on, RingCentral utilizes the same platform. And again, we'll get you more instructions to your primary email address. Next slide. And finally, you can connect with any laptop, smartphone, SmartPad, anything that you need to. There's no special equipment needed. As Claudia mentioned, please connect 15 minutes prior. I will typically do a sound check with each board member just to validate that everything's working okay. I'm happy to work with your organization's IT department to resolve any issues that might come up. The most common is with sound, and let me know if you know of a problem. I've got lots of solutions to get those resolved. I think that's it.
Very good. Josh, you're going to talk about legal matters?
Yes, thanks, President Atwater. Yep. So just last slide here is just a note on some required trainings that we want to make sure each director has taken, and those are specifically the AB 1234 ethics training as well as the sexual harassment avoidance training. It's very likely that you've already received these trainings through your member agency, and we certainly don't want you to have to sit through training you've already taken. So Claudia and I will be following up with each of you individually to get a copy of that certificate. And if for some reason you do need those trainings and it's time, for those to come up, we can either work with your member agency to make sure you get the training or provide it ourselves. We're, whatever works best. And then lastly, we are always available to provide any assistance or training that might be helpful on things like the Brown Act or Public Records Act. Again, we know generally that's handled through your member agencies, but we're here to help. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, so President Atwater, that was it for our orientation session. And again, if there's any questions anyone has, we'd be glad to take them.
Any questions?
Yeah. I just want to say one other thing. If anybody needs to get hold of me, I mean, Claudia, I have no problem with you giving out my phone number to anyone. I'm not worried about it. If anybody's harassing, I'll just tell them where to go. But that's other than that. It's okay. Either my emails or my telephone numbers, just fine.
Thanks,
Thanks, Sarah.
I think, yeah, I chatted with Claudia at the beginning of the meeting. We probably ought to have a roster of the new members of the board, which would also include contact of key people at the DCA office, and likewise. So if any board member wants to talk to another one or talk to the staff, they have the contact information. Great. Any requests? Our next meeting it's noted on the agenda for February 18th at 2 o'clock, unless we have a closed session at 1:30. Any requests for agenda items? Hearing none, then I guess we can adjourn. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you on the 18th.
Thank you for a great first meeting.
Yeah, excellent. Right
Very
on
good.
time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good.
Sarah, please give my regards to Valerie.
Oh, I certainly will. I certainly will.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.